Hi there, this is Brita Wynn, and I am here to do Ask a Witch. I have a new setting, working on a few things in terms of making the vlog more friendly and easier to watch. So today I'm talking about art as prayer. And this is an important topic because art as prayer is, I'd say, a universal practice. There are a lot of old incarnations of it, as well as new ones in newer traditions. But let me take a moment to talk about art as prayer in an indigenous culture, and kind of get a view of what that means, and then we'll talk about some things that are done in both modern and ancient cultures to pray through transformational art. So first off, one of the cultures that I actually had direct contact with in relation to this is the Huichol. The Huichol are an indigenous culture of Mexico. They live in Jalisco. Which is the same state that Guadalajara is in, and they live pretty far up in the mountains. They don't come down very often. They are known indirectly through some of their art forms. In the West, most people have never heard of the Huichol, but they are what we refer to in anthropology as a shaman people, and that means that most of the adults are shamans. I met a group of Huichol at a shop in Davis. They had traveled to Davis, California. They were brought there as part of a program to educate people about some of the artwork that they produce. And they were doing a few things to raise money for their community. And one of the things they do is they use a rattle to shake around the body to loosen energy that's negative, kind of like smudging, except with a rattle. They also are known for their yarn paintings. Some of you may have seen yarn paintings done by the Huichol. They are usually on a piece of wood with yarn is the primary medium, which is used to depict their gods and goddesses. The other thing that was very popular in the 60s and 70s that most people don't associate with them, but is one of their art forms, is the what used to be called the God's Eye. When we say God's Eye, we don't mean God the Father in heaven, we mean gods plural. And so often these are more than one eye. I'll show you an example. Some of you may remember these from your childhood. And this one has 3 eyes, and it's just wrapped pieces of wood that in the shape of an eye. And these can get very, very elaborate. A lot of my relatives that lived in San Francisco when I was a teenager in the 70s and a little kid in the 60s had these in their homes. And they're viewed kind of like a protection, like evil eye wards, I guess, is the best way to put it. And they just use colorful yarn, and many of the ones that I've seen actually have more than one eye, but eyes all over the place. Might have an eye coming off the edge and some eyes on the back, and because the Huichol are polytheistic, which means that they have more than one god, and so the many gods watching over you, of course, is a really positive thing. The other thing they do is prayer arrows, which some of you may be familiar with. Prayer arrows are a piece of wood, like a stick, that has yarn wrapped around it, sometimes feathers on the end. I'll show you how to make one today. And the intention is put into the arrow to manifest something. Those are all Huichol art forms. The Huichol are peyotists. That means that they use peyote in ritual, and they make journeys every year, pilgrimages across the land to collect that peyote. Everyone engages in the use of it, and art is always produced under the influence of the peyote, because the peyote brings gods into your mind. It brings visions. And so A typical painting, yarn painting, might be first the wood would be laid out, and then beeswax would be put onto it, and it would be put in the hot sun, and there would be colorful yarn available, and the person would take peyote and they would wait for a vision. And when a vision came from the gods, they would paint that in yarn. And so the yarn paintings that are sold in Mexico that you find in the galleries or whatever are not generally art as prayer. The ones that are art as prayer are not sold. They may be gifted, but they are not sold. I have one I was looking for earlier to try to show you. Couldn't find it, but it has the story of the goddess of the sea on the back. And as an anthropologist, I know that even though it is a rendering in Spanish of the Huichol story of the goddess of the sea, the Huichol are non-literate, and that means that everything that they do in terms of stories is passed down verbally from one generation to the next. And so they believe, and this is true of many verbal traditions, they believe that if one word is changed, then it takes the power out of the myth. That it no longer connects them to that source. And they do it on purpose on things they sell because they don't want to give away their myths. They don't want to give away their stories. They don't want to give away the sacred. And so for the tourist trade, which in Guadalajara at least, people come to get their artwork, the stories that are on the back of the artwork are changed so that they are not giving away their mythologies. So art as prayer is very, very ancient. Art has always been a part of religious practice. If you look at, all the ancient artwork in European circles or in indigenous cultures, Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, Americas, all the art, a lot of the art focuses around the sacred, the spiritual. It's a way of making it so that we can comprehend it. The sacred is so abstract and so hard to really wrap your mind around that we need symbolism to be able to understand it. And through that symbolism, we're able to connect. And that's very, very important. In the West, we've taken art out of the schools. We've taken it, we've lost funding for all kinds of things. Any art classes are generally volunteers. I did a lot of volunteering when Lily was little. Because I feel that art is transformational. Art will take you from one state of being to another state of being, depending upon what it is you're working with. And so there are also a lot of modern traditions that are using art. And one of the things that I did this last week was I went to a Gaia Magic art camp with a woman by the name of Jessica Bowman, who holds a master's degree in women's spirituality and art. And we did a lot of things that I would classify anthropologically as being art as prayer. And so they were really, really transformational things. They helped us to visualize the things that we want in our lives. They helped us to create strong images of the things that we would like to embody. They helped us to connect with the sacred. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we did that are art, that are part of the art as prayer concept. So one of the things that we did is we made these dream catchers, which I think I would rather call this a dream maker, a dream manifester. And the reason that I want to call it that is because it's not to catch dreams and dissipate them, which is the Native American idea behind these. This is made to be a web of our things that we would like to manifest and be something that we can dream about and can become reality. So what we did is we took an embroidery hoop, just one piece of it, and we wrote all of our intentions on the wood, all of the things that we would like to create in our lives. And then we thought about those things as we wrapped it. And some of the women used yarn or ribbon or whatever. I chose some yarn and some sari silk strips, which I thought just was really beautiful green. And so wrapped all of those intentions inside of this hoop, and then did the web on the inside and tied things to it. A piece of moss to connect me with nature, a peacock feather to connect me with our wild peacock, and the idea that wild can also mean abundant, luxurious, beautiful, incredible. Because look at this feather. I mean, nature did that. That's pretty amazing. To remind me of the majesty of nature. It was really an important part of this for me. And then I have a little bottle of green and purple glitter, which also symbolizes that magic for me. And I hung some things off the bottom to catch the wind, so that my prayers, my wishes, my dreams would catch the wind and manifest. So this was one of the art forms that we did. And I really like it. I actually want to make a lot more of these because they're just really beautiful. I have some things in the bottom here. I have a key that says journey, because I'm definitely on a journey. And I have a symbol of the goddess here, because I'm definitely on that path. And some seashells, because the ocean really pulls me. And so this is a way of taking my wishes and my dreams and putting them into a physical object. In other words, taking your dreams and beginning to manifest those through art. So that is a favorite piece from this last weekend. We also did, we painted and dedicated drums, and some of you will recognize this drum. I've had this drum for a long time. This drum was originally painted years ago for the witch camps we used to do at Bear River, and it had kind of gotten faded and scratched up, and the magic was old and no longer fit me. And so I did some things to change it. I put some shamrocks around the edge to connect me with that lovely Celtic energy, and some more sari silk here. And then, I have a compass on the moon here to help me find my way through the goddess. And a mandala on the sun to help me meditate and find my center. And so reinitialize the magic here through art. And it feels completely different. This drum, as I said, has been with me for more than 20 years. And it feels like a brand new drum to me. And then we did a drum blessing to initiate it as our drum, as for use in sacred ritual. So this is one of the most favorite things that we did. But a lot of women bought a drum, a synthetic drum off of Amazon and painted it. And there's all kinds of drums like that available. And we're able to create a tool for their own ritual use. We did things like put our faces to the drum, and the drum will amplify your voice. So if you sing, it will vibrate, and it also makes it louder. And so we would do that, and all the women's voices together, which was really lovely. So this was one of the sacred arts that we engaged in. I also have a spirit doll that we made. And this is, really probably the next favorite thing. Jessica makes these faces that she gave all of us to do our dolls. And mine has two faces because I feel like I'm in a state of transformation. I've been sort of fighting the whole getting old and being fully walking in or stepping into crone-ness. And so I used some silver wool to symbolize that is being accepted. This side is the mother of adult children, and I've got the snake and the rose and those kind of things to symbolize her roles. And then the other side is the crone, which I think is my favorite, and it makes me want to stop coloring my hair and just embrace the beauty that is the crone of my life. Not everyone gets to go there, so it's pretty sacred. And so we anointed the wadding in the center of the doll with essential oil, and wrote a blessing for ourselves to say every day when we hold the doll, and then we made the doll as an expression of our inner selves, of who we would like to be or who we would like to be viewed as in the world. I love the moss around her face and the heart on her forehead as, being connected to nature and coming from a place of love and magic. She's just really powerful to me. And so just created from some sticks, some pieces of old fabric, some pieces of new fabric, some beads and necklaces, and these faces which Jessica makes, which are pretty incredible. So that was another piece that we did that I really enjoyed doing. Put it all back over here. But, a lot of people are engaged in doing things that are even simpler. Like, for example, this is a collage. I did this with my friend Crystal, and it was images of things that made me feel connected to my spirituality. So the places that I find power, one of the places I find power is the seaside. I'd love to go to the ocean. I have a trip planned in August to go after Lily's play, because I just need to go there and just stare at it and connect with it for long periods of time. So this is kind of a way to remind me that I need to go there periodically and just cleanse. And Two of Cups, which symbolizes soulmates, which I do feel like I have found mine. And so that's important to me, staying connected and working on that relationship. And then the fairy on a horse down here, also in the ocean, connecting with the nature spirits. How does your garden grow? Connecting with the herbs and the plants. I love growing things. So reminding myself that this is where I gain power, is in the garden. The garden is my place of power. And of course, Pan, who I love the image of. It's such an aspect of the wildness that we still have in us, but we've tried really desperately hard to train out of ourselves. And so I feel very, the imagery here helps me connect. I have the symbol of the goddess here, and it's hard to see, and a pentacle to help me to visualize what I want in my life. Now, I've seen people do these for prosperity, where they, will put all kinds of images of money, or all kinds of images of what they view as prosperity, or all kinds of, if they want love, all kinds of images of what they think love is and what they would like it to look like in their lives. And so sacred collages are a part of the modern way that we look at things, the way that we connect with spirituality through art. I have always been a very tactile person, and so I find that I do a lot of things that are not necessarily viewed by our society as as art. We don't think of like candle making necessarily as art, or essential oil mixing. We don't think of incense making as art, but it is that, because what we're putting into that is our intentions, our magical plants, spirits that we love and connect with, our herbal knowledge, our focus. And so these are the same kinds of transformational art forms. For me, herbalism is an outgrowth of that transformative energy. I can take green materials from the green plants, the green spirits, and mix them together in ways that transform them into something that will transform a sick person into a well person. And so that's magic. That's using your hands and your heart and your spiritual intent to change the world, which is what spiritual art is. It's what people have been doing for centuries. I mean, if you think about the huge temples, one of the things that Matthew Fox, the great Matthew Fox, who will always hold an incredible space in my heart, said was, that during the witch burning periods, during the not industrialization, but the city, beginning of the real city periods, the 14th, 15th centuries of Europe, there were hundreds of churches that were erected. While women were being burned at the stake for being powerful, there were hundreds of churches being erected the size of cathedrals, and they were all dedicated to Mary. It was a way for people to take her back, to connect back with that sacred feminine. And so for me, the art expressions that we do, the things that we make, the things that we create, we are creators. My grandmother said something really wise to me when I was really young about this. She said, it says in the Bible that God created us in his image. But I think that when they say that, what they mean is that we were created by the divine as creators. That we have the ability to create the world, the life, the situation that we want. And we've been doing that, but very unconsciously. We've been, creating a very destructive, dystopian kind of future for ourselves. And it's not even conscious. It's just coming out of a place of fear and confusion and capitalism and all kinds of other things that are all wound together in ways that are not very healthy. Not that any of those things is necessarily a huge bad thing on its own, but altogether the way it's woven, it's telling the story of our demise through art, through film, through video media. We are creating the end of our world. And we need to recognize that art is the way that we create the worlds that we live in. We create what we want to do. We create who we are. We create, everything comes from art. Everything. The clothes you wear, the necklaces, the makeup, the house you live in, the furniture, the floor, everything. The artist drew that first. Created it here and here first. So art as prayer, in my opinion, is one of the more important topics to discuss in a dialogue about how are we going to change this situation? How are we going to go forward with our spirituality, with our magic? We make a spell every time we open our mouths. We make a spell every time we draw a picture. We make a spell every time we paint, every time we weave, every time we dance, every time we sing. And so art then becomes incredibly important. We have put it on the sidelines. And I think we have done that. I think the powers that be have done that on purpose, because it's a place where we find power. Power is in creation, and art is one of the ways that we do it. And so art as prayer, in my opinion, is one of the most important topics that we've covered in Ask a Witch. And I really think that everyone should try to sit down a little while every day or every week and create a story, paint a picture, draw a picture, weave something, make a dream catcher, make a cedar wand, make a drum, do anything that is creative that takes you out of the rat race maze and outside of the box of what is to what can be. Because that's what art does in religion. It gives us a vision of what can be, what may be beyond what is physical, what we can feel that cannot be described through regular words. It's a way of communication, I really think. So, what I would like to do is I would like to open up, because we still have about 5 minutes, I would like to open up the floor for questions, if you have any. And the other thing too is many of these topics are topics that people requested, although Artist Prayer is one that I chose on my own. I would like to know from you guys what else you would like me to address. I have a vast knowledge of anthropology, but also a vast knowledge of ritual and practice in terms of the comparative religion that I've studied, but also the experiences that I've had in many, many circles and religions. It took me a long time to figure out what I believed because I grew up Catholic, and the Catholic Church is very rigid and not very abstract in its ways of doing things, a very direct ritual kind of way. And it took me a long time to figure out what fit and what didn't fit. And I was always very drawn to the artwork of the Catholic Church. It's always very dramatic, lots of, big statues and gold and silver and halos and all kinds of stuff. And it's this very beautiful vision in some ways of what spirituality is, except for that guy, that's nailed to the two sticks. A lot of it is gorgeous. And after I sorted out what didn't really work for me, then I started looking at other traditions, other religions. And so I have a lot of experience with cross-cultural religious practice. So if there is anything that you would like me to address, I'd be happy to do that. I have a few things that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to give you a little verbal thing, on what I'm going to do, and then I'll type it up and put it at the top of the page. For August 1st, next week, the first, second, depending upon the tradition you are, is Lu, which is the first harvest, the harvest of the grain. And so I'll be talking about that next week. And then August 8th, what is a pagan? What does that mean? What does pagan mean? What does heathen mean? And what kinds of pagan traditions are out there? What does that mean exactly? So we're going to talk about that on the 8th, and then on the 15th, I'm going to go in depth with the Wiccan Rede. What is it exactly? What does the whole thing say, and what does each part of it mean, and why is it important? And then lastly, on August 28th, I'm going to talk a little bit about cults. It's something that we do talk about in anthropology, and I have a bit of structural understanding that I think is helpful in terms of being able to determine when you are looking for a circle to practice with or a group of people, whether they are genuinely, open and practicing an open tradition, or if there is an aspect of cultishness. It's important to recognize that, because having been co-opted into a cult when I was much, much younger, it can get very, very scary, and people will do things that they wouldn't normally do. And recognizing that early on is a good thing. So I want to help with that as well. I do know that Wicca has been tagged by the law a benign cult, but it doesn't really fit, because Wiccans are like cats. They don't go in the same direction. There's no real leader. And the definition of a cult is a charismatic leader who has followers. And, well, there are some people who have followers, but they're also very, very independent. It's not like, if one person says, oh, we all have to do this, then everyone's going to do it, because I've never seen a Wiccan group that's like that. In fact, you can't even get them all to ritual at the same time. So, the aspect of what the difference is between what's called a cult by our culture and what a cult actually is an important discussion for us to have. So, that said, one last note, I am working on a Patreon account. And on that account, I will be offering classes and additional vlogs that have to do with seasonal changes. I'll be offering consultations as part of that, and readings, and a whole plethora of other things for those who are willing to support the creation of those items. I also... every time I have a class, somebody asks me, have you written a book? And if I had $1 for every time someone had asked me, have you written a book? Have you thought of writing a book? I wouldn't even need to work. So I'm thinking that I would like to do that. The realistic aspect of it is that I also have to live and pay bills and that sort of thing. So I will be offering some things around that as well. I have several books in mind I have for quite a long time. I have a lot of notes written down, and so I'll be creating those in the next year to the next couple of years. And I also, when I get to a certain point where I have enough support, I would like to start offering meditations that go with the Sabbats, and rituals that can help people to celebrate those days, as well as meditations, information, and preparation for full moons and for new moons. So be watching for that. I will post the link to the Patreon when it is complete here and everywhere that I can, and I would be very appreciative if you would share it around, because this is my life's work. It always has been. As an anthropologist, there were a number of restrictions that kept me from being able to speak my truth completely. But at this point in my life, there are no restrictions. I have reached my crone-ness fully, and I would like to share with you the wisdom that I have gained over the years on many, many topics that have to do with sacred practice, herbalism, esoterica, all kinds of areas of connection with the divine. So that said, that takes us to 7:01, and the discussion is complete. Please feel free to put any suggestions for future Ask a Witch, or classes that you would like to see me put up on Patreon. What do you want to learn? What would you like me to teach? I'm happy to accommodate you in any way that you would like. If it's something that I don't know anything about, I'll flat out tell you. But there's a lot of things that I do know about that I'd be happy to share. So I hope that you enjoyed this broadcast, and I will save it to the page so that you can watch it again if you would like to. And I look forward to hearing comments about what kind of classes you would like to see, and also what kind of future Ask a Witch programs you would like me to do. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Bye.